What if the greatest pain of your life was the start of something extraordinary? Emily and Liam were the perfect couple, but they were facing a devastating void. When their lives crossed paths with Maya, a woman full of resilience, something unexpected happened. A connection that would change everything. Love, loss, and a secret that could destroy or transform their lives forever. Get ready for an emotional story that will touch your heart and leave you breathless. Which city are you watching from? Write in the comments, I want to know. And if you love heartwarming stories like this one, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to keep receiving stories that will warm your heart. The marble clock on the mantelpiece ticked away the hours, each tick resounding like a cruel reminder of the emptiness that consumed the Carter's mansion. Emily was sitting in a corner of the room, her fingers intertwined, clenching them so tightly that her knuckles were white. She tried to hide the trembling that overwhelmed her, but her eyes, swollen and red, betrayed her fragility. Liam, in his impeccably tailored suit, paced back and forth, his jaw clenched, as if any word could destroy the fragile balance between them. Night had fallen, but the darkness seemed thicker inside the house than outside. I don't understand, said Emily, her voice shaking as the tears threatened to fall again. Why is this happening to me? I did everything right, Liam. We did everything right. Why can't we have a baby? Liam stopped abruptly and turned to face her, his eyes filled with sadness. He wanted to say something, anything to ease the pain he saw on her face, but there were no words. The silence between them was an abyss. He knew the answer, and so did she. But every time the reality was spoken out loud, it seemed even more brutal. Emily, he finally said, his voice heavy with grief. He moved closer, kneeling in front of her to take her hands. We've tried everything. You can't keep blaming yourself. But it's my fault, she whispered, her voice breaking as silent tears streamed down her face. I'm the problem, Liam. My body doesn't work as it should. How can I not blame myself for that? He squeezed her hands tightly, his eyes filling with tears. He had never seen Emily so vulnerable, and the weight of her pain consumed him too. You're not to blame for this. None of our choices change what happened. And you need to remember that I'm not here for that. I'm here because I love you. Nothing else matters. But Emily shook her head, looking away. It matters to me, she replied, almost in a whisper. I wanted to give you a family. I wanted to be enough. Liam felt as if a knife was going through his chest. He desperately wanted to tear this guilt away from her, but he knew that words wouldn't be enough. Instead, he pulled her into an embrace, holding her as if he could keep her whole with his arms. But deep down he was broken too. As the couple faced their pain on the other side of town, Maya Thompson was finishing another exhausting shift at the hospital. Her legs ached and her shoulders were tense, but she knew she couldn't rest yet. Her daughter, Sophie, was waiting for her at the neighbor's house. Since the death of her husband, Jordan, in a tragic car accident, Maya had been working hard to support her daughter and keep the house. The pain of her loss was still fresh, but life didn't allow her the luxury of stopping. When she finally got home, she found Sophie asleep on the sofa. The little girl's curls were scattered across the pillow, and her serene expression was a contrast to the chaos Maya felt inside. She knelt beside her daughter, running her fingers gently through her hair. We'll survive, sweetheart, she whispered, her voice filled with love and determination. Somehow we will survive. The next morning, fate began to weave its invisible thread. During a charity party organized by a children's hospital, Liam and Emily attended with the aim of distracting themselves. Emily, desperate to find something to fill the emptiness she felt, saw philanthropic causes as a way of trying to regain control over her life. Maya was also there, invited as one of the honorees for saving the life of a critically ill child. She didn't expect to be introduced to Liam and Emily Carter, almost mythological figures in their social circle. It's a pleasure to meet you, said Maya, extending her hand to Emily with a warm smile. Even though she was tired, she maintained an energy that seemed contagious. Emily, although polite, sensed something strange in the way Maya behaved. This woman seemed to be the opposite of her, full of strength, purpose, and completely alive. Do you work with children? Asked Emily, trying to mask her vulnerability with curiosity. Yes, I'm a pediatric nurse. I work with children in critical situations, replied Maya. There was a gleam in her voice when she talked about what she did, something that Emily couldn't ignore. For a moment, she felt a twinge of envy. Even facing her own difficulties, Maya seemed to radiate something that Emily deeply desired. Liam, who had stepped away to take a call, returned to the table just as the two women were laughing shyly. Something about Maya intrigued him, but he couldn't define what it was. Emily, however, felt that something about this woman was exactly what she needed. A friend, an example, someone who wasn't broken. In the weeks that followed, Emily took the initiative to get closer to Maya. The two began to spend time together, gradually exchanging confidences. One quiet afternoon, while sharing a cup of coffee, Emily finally got to vent about her struggles with infertility. Maya, always attentive, listened with empathy, but Emily noticed a subtle discomfort in her friend. "Is everything all right?" asked Emily, curious. "You seem distant." Maya hesitated for a moment before sighing deeply. "Emily, I recently found out that I'm pregnant." Emily's heart stopped for a moment. Maya's words were a surprise, but it was what came next that really left her speechless. "It's twins." The room plunged into a thick silence as Emily tried to process what she had just heard. Something inside her changed in that instant, something she still couldn't name. Fate had just intertwined the two women's lives in a way that neither of them could have foreseen. Emily froze. Maya's words resounded like an infinite echo in her mind, each syllable piercing like a dagger. Pregnant. Twins. For a few moments the world seemed to spin more slowly. The sound of coffee boiling on the counter next to her sounded distant. The cup trembled slightly in her hands, and Emily struggled to keep her composure. Maya, for her part, noticed the reaction, but couldn't gauge what it meant. "Twins," Emily murmured, more to herself than to Maya, her eyes fixed on the void. She tried to smile, but the gesture was fragile, almost shaky. "That's a blessing, isn't it?" Maya hesitated. It was clear that the conversation had touched an exposed nerve in Emily. Without fully understanding the context, she tried to smooth it over. "Yes, I think it is, but I confess I'm a little scared. I didn't expect it, especially with everything that's happened in my life recently." Emily leaned forward slightly, her eyes now fixed on Maya, filled with something bordering on obsession. "Do you feel ready? I mean, bringing up two children on your own, it must be very difficult. Do you have support? Family nearby?" Maya took a deep breath, her smile faltering. "I have some friends who help me, but it's like you said, it's going to be hard. I'm still processing everything. My priority is Sophie, my daughter. Now with two more on the way, I feel like I'm trying to run a marathon without knowing where the finish line is." Emily nodded, but her gaze didn't waver. Inside her, conflicting thoughts were beginning to take shape. The raw pain of her inability to bear children was mixed with an insane and desperate hope, something she herself couldn't articulate. Maya seemed to be everything Emily wasn't: fertile, resilient, and capable of creating life even in the midst of chaos. And at that moment, a thought was born inside Emily, a thought that would grow until it dominated everything. That evening, Emily shared the conversation with Liam. He was sitting in his office, immersed in documents and emails, when she entered, closing the door firmly behind her. Her expression was intense, and Liam knew something was coming. "Maya's pregnant," she said abruptly, bluntly. Liam looked up from the monitor, confused. "Maya, the nurse you met. And why is that relevant to us?" "Twins," Emily continued, ignoring his question. "She's pregnant with twins, alone, with difficulties, and I can't stop thinking about it." Liam closed his laptop, the tension in the air growing. "Emily, I understand that you're going through a lot right now, but this has nothing to do with us." Emily stepped forward, her hands clenching the arms of Liam's armchair. "How can you say that? How can you act like it's just another of life's coincidences? Liam, maybe this is a sign. Maybe this is the chance we've been waiting for." Liam frowned, trying to understand what she was getting at. "What exactly are you suggesting? That we take her children?" "Emily, that's insane." "I'm not saying we take them," Emily retorted, her voice shaking with emotion. "But what if we could help her, support her? Maybe she'd consider letting us raise them. She's overwhelmed, Liam, and we have everything to offer." The silence that followed was heavy. Liam knew Emily was desperate, but the idea seemed absurd. He tried to calm her down, but deep down he felt a twinge of discomfort. Something in his eyes told him that Emily wouldn't let this idea die easily. Over the next few weeks, Emily began to get even closer to Maya, offering emotional and material support. She brought meals to her house, visited frequently, and even looked after Sophie on occasion. Maya, without realizing the extent of Emily's plans, began to trust her, believing that she had found a genuine friend amidst the chaos of her life. One afternoon, while Maya was resting on the sofa with Sophie after a long day, Emily appeared with a bag full of baby clothes. "I know it's early," she said with a beaming smile, "but I couldn't resist. Look at these little jumpsuits, perfect for two." Maya laughed, but there was a slight discomfort growing. "You really didn't have to do that, Emily. But thank you, really. I'm just overwhelmed by such generosity." "Nonsense," replied Emily, brushing off the comment. "You're amazing, Maya. You're raising Sophie on your own, and now you're bringing two babies into the world. If anyone deserves help, it's you." Although the words were comforting, there was an intensity in Emily's gestures that Maya couldn't ignore. The way she looked at Maya's belly as if she were contemplating something deeper made her uneasy. Maya decided to ignore her instincts for the time being, believing that Emily was just excited. Meanwhile, Liam watched Emily's obsession grow and began to feel increasingly uncomfortable. He tried to approach her several times, but Emily closed herself off, defending her new friendship tooth and nail. For her, Maya was a unique opportunity, a thread of hope in the midst of darkness. Things reached breaking point when Emily, without consulting Liam, invited Maya to dinner at her house. The evening seemed to start well, with laughter and stories exchanged, but it took an unexpected turn when Emily, almost casually, suggested that Maya consider other options for the babies. "I mean, you already have Sophie," said Emily, her voice sweet but laden with intent. "And twins are so intense. Have you thought about how hard it will be to look after them all? Not to mention the cost." Maya, although surprised, tried to disguise her reaction. "Yes, I've thought about it a lot. But they're mine, Emily. They're my family. No matter how hard it is, I'll manage." Emily's smile hardened for a split second before returning to its usual softness. "Of course, Maya, I understand. I just want you to know that if you ever need help, well, we're here." Liam watched everything in silence, but he knew that Emily's obsession was taking on dangerous proportions. When Maya left that night, he confronted his wife. "This has to stop, Emily. You're crossing a line. She trusts you, and you're manipulating the situation." Emily turned to him, her eyes glistening with tears and frustration. "Manipulating? Can't you see that this could be our only chance of having a family? I'm not giving up, Liam, I can't." Emily intensified her efforts with frightening determination. Every day she showed up at Maya's house with more and more elaborate excuses to justify her presence. She always brought something: presents for Sophie, supermarket bags full of expensive items, or a simple "I was just passing by" excuse. The smile on Emily's face was impeccable, but her insistence was becoming annoying. Maya, always polite and suspicious, tried to return the kindness with gratitude, although she increasingly felt a twinge of discomfort that she couldn't explain. At first, Maya interpreted everything as an attempt at friendship. After all, Emily seemed genuinely interested in helping, but over time, something in her approach changed. Each visit seemed to come with subtle, almost imperceptible questions about the twins. "Have you chosen names yet?" Or, "Do you have any idea how much it costs to raise two babies at the same time?" The tone was always casual, but there was an unsettling subtext in every sentence. Maya responded with vague smiles and short sentences, feeling that perhaps she was exaggerating her suspicion. But as the days went by, the visits became even more frequent, and Emily's presence increasingly difficult to avoid. One afternoon, while Maya was resting on the sofa with Sophie by her side, Emily arrived unannounced. Light knocks on the door echoed through the house, followed by an "I brought you something," before Maya could even open it. When the door opened, Emily entered with her usual elegance, carrying a gift bag and a smile that seemed to have been calculated to the millimeter. "I hope I'm not disturbing you," said Emily enthusiastically, placing the bag on the coffee table. "I thought you might like these. They're useful things for babies. You know how practical I am." Maya, a little disconcerted, thanked her as she looked through the contents of the bag: state-of-the-art baby bottles, expensive clothes, and a box of educational toys. "You're very kind, Emily, but you didn't have to spend so much. I'm getting organized." "Don't be silly," Emily replied. taking a seat on the sofa next to Sophie and running her fingers through the girl's curls. "You have enough to worry about now. It's the least I can do." Maya forced a smile, trying to dispel the feeling that something was wrong. Emily always seemed to be studying her, her eyes fixed on her every move as if looking for some kind of weakness. The conversation quickly switched to the twins, and Maya realized how interested Emily was in specific details. "Have you thought about what it will be like when they are born? 2 newborns can be crazy. You'll need a lot of help." "Yes, it will be difficult," Maya replied, trying to sound casual. "But I'll manage, as I always have." Emily leaned slightly, resting her elbows on her knees as if to narrow the distance between them. "And have you considered all your options? I mean, there are ways to make things easier, you know?" Maya frowned, suspicious. "What kind of options?" "Oh, nothing much," Emily replied, her voice soft, but her tone carried something deeper. "I just thought that maybe, if you needed extra support, someone with experience could help. Take care of the babies so that you didn't have to carry so much weight." Maya's discomfort grew. "Emily, I appreciate your concern, but I'm fine. I'll take care of them. No matter how hard it is, they're my children." Emily smiled, but there was something stiff about the gesture, as if she were trying to mask her frustration. "Of course you will, darling. I just wanted to say that we're here if you need anything." The conversation ended there, but when Emily finally left, Maya felt a heaviness in her chest that she couldn't explain. It was as if that woman was trying to invade her life in a way that went beyond friendship. That night, alone in her room, Maya reflected on their recent interactions and couldn't ignore the feeling that there was something more to Emily's gestures. She decided to keep her distance, but that would be easier said than done. Meanwhile, Emily, back at the Carters' mansion, was more determined than ever. Maya's reaction had been a setback, but not enough to upset her plan. She talked to Liam that same evening while he tried to concentrate on his work papers. "Don't you think it would be perfect?" she asked abruptly, interrupting the silence in the room. Liam sighed, already anticipating what was to come. He closed his laptop and looked at his wife wearily. "Emily, you need to stop this. You're overstepping your bounds. This woman trusts you and you're manipulating that trust." "Manipulating?" Emily replied indignantly. "I'm trying to help, Liam. Can't you see that this could be good for all of us? She's overwhelmed. I'm not stealing anything from her. I'm just offering an alternative." "Alternative?" he repeated, incredulous. "You're trying to convince a pregnant woman to give up her own children. That's not help, Emily. That's cruelty." The argument became more heated, but Emily refused to give in. For her, the twins were the only chance to fill the void that tormented her. Liam's every argument was countered with more emotion, more stubbornness. He knew he couldn't convince her to give up. A few days later, Emily returned to Maya's house, but this time she was even more direct. She brought a folder of documents, something that immediately put Maya on alert. Emily placed the folder on the table and smiled as always, but there was something almost predatory about her posture. "I want you to think about this carefully," said Emily, opening the folder. "I know you didn't ask for my help, but I can't stand by while someone I admire so much fights alone." Inside the folder, Maya saw contracts, forms, and pages of letterhead. Her head spun as she read the first few lines. It was a custody agreement. Emily was proposing, in a veiled way, that Maya give up the twins for her and Liam to raise. Maya closed the folder abruptly, indignation burning in her throat. "What is this, Emily? You think you can just show up here and buy my children?" "No, it's not that," Emily tried to justify, holding up her hands as if to calm her down. "I just thought you might want to consider a better alternative. You could still see them. I'm not taking anything away from you." "Yes, you are," Maya replied, her voice shaking with anger. "You're trying to steal the only thing I have left. How dare you? You're the one who's alone and empty, Emily, not me." Emily recoiled at the impact of the words, but her expression hardened. Maya led her to the door, closing it firmly before she could reply. Inside the car, Emily felt tears burn her eyes, but it wasn't sadness. It was frustration. She felt she was so close, but Maya was tougher than she expected. For Emily, this wasn't the end. It was just another obstacle that she was willing to overcome, whatever the cost. The door was slammed shut and Maya leaned against it, trying to catch her breath. Her heart was hammering in her chest, and tears began to flow before she could stop them. The absurdity of the situation seemed overwhelming. Emily, the woman she had allowed into her life, was now trying to take her children. The mere thought made her stomach turn. Sophie, who was playing in her room, heard the sound of the door slamming and came running, worried. "Mommy, is everything all right?" The girl's voice was soft, but Maya barely managed to answer. She knelt down and hugged Sophie tightly, feeling a growing fear. This couldn't go on. Emily had crossed an unacceptable line. Meanwhile, Emily was driving home with her eyes fixed on the road, her fingers gripping the steering wheel so hard that her knuckles were white. Maya's look of contempt, her sharp words, all still echoed in her mind. She felt a mixture of humiliation and anger, but also something deeper, an obsession she couldn't control. In Emily's mind, Maya was being irrational, unable to see the truth. For Emily, the twins belonged to her. She needed them, more than Maya could imagine. When she got home, Emily found Liam in the study. He looked at her with a mixture of concern and tiredness. "Where were you?" he asked, even though he knew the answer. "I was trying to put things right, Liam, but she won't listen. Maya's being selfish." Emily's voice was full of frustration and tears. "She doesn't understand that I'm trying to help her. This isn't just about me. It's about those babies. They'll have a much better life with us." Liam stood up slowly, running his hands over his face. "Emily, you need to stop. You're going too far. Don't you see what this is doing to you? It's destroying you, destroying us." Emily shook her head, as if to ward off Liam's words. "Destroying? No, I'm trying to save us, Liam. You don't understand. These babies are our only chance. I'm not giving up." "Emily," Liam said firmly, stepping closer, "this has crossed the line. You can't force Maya to give up her children. They're hers, not ours." Liam's words were a blow, but Emily refused to give in. She pulled away, staring at him with an almost frightening determination. "If you can't understand, then don't try to stop me." Over the next few days, Maya did everything she could to cut off all contact with Emily. She didn't answer her calls, ignored her messages, and refused her visits. Emily, however, didn't give up. She started showing up in places she knew Maya frequented: the supermarket, the park where Sophie played, even outside the hospital where Maya worked. The stalking was subtle but constant, like a shadow that Maya couldn't avoid. One night, Maya decided she needed help. She picked up the phone and called her best friend Angela, a lawyer specializing in family cases. When Angela answered, Maya could barely hold back the tears as she explained everything that had happened: the insistent visits, the gifts, the absurd custody proposal. "This is unacceptable, Maya. You need to put a stop to this immediately," Angela said firmly. "If it continues, we can file a restraining order. No one has the right to invade your life like this." Maya felt a pang of relief at hearing her friend's words. Finally, there seemed to be a solution. But at the same time, she felt afraid. She knew that confronting Emily could trigger something even more serious. The next day, Angela went to Maya's house to help her prepare the necessary documents. While they talked in the living room, Sophie played on the carpet with her toys. Maya finally felt that she was regaining control of her life, but her tranquility was interrupted by a knock on the door. Maya and Angela exchanged apprehensive glances. When Maya opened the door, she found Emily standing there with a desperate expression. Before Maya could say anything, Emily abruptly entered, her eyes moving from Maya to Angela and then to Sophie, who was watching the scene curiously. "Emily, you can't just barge in like that," said Maya, trying to remain calm. Angela stood up immediately, positioning herself next to Maya. "I just need to talk to you," Emily pleaded, ignoring Angela's presence. "Please, Maya, just listen to me." "You've already said everything you need to say," Maya replied, crossing her arms. "And I've already said that I'm not interested. Now, please leave." Emily looked on the verge of collapse. Her eyes were red, and her hands were shaking as she held something that looked like a letter. "You don't understand," she said, her voice breaking. "I can't go home without making this work. I've lost everything. I lost the chance to be a mother. I've lost what hope I had left. These babies, they're my only chance of happiness." Angela intervened, her voice firm. "Emily, this is harassment. You have no right to be here. I'm going to ask you to leave now, or I'll have to call the police." Emily glared at Angela, but finally backed down. Before leaving, she turned to Maya one last time, tears streaming down her face. "You don't understand what you're doing to me," she murmured. "But you will. One day, you will." As soon as Emily left, Maya collapsed on the sofa, feeling as if she had just escaped from something terrible. Angela hugged her, promising to take care of everything. But deep down, Maya knew that Emily wouldn't give up so easily. Outside, Emily got into her car, shaking with anger and humiliation. Angela's words echoed in her mind. That's harassment. Emily didn't see it that way. For her, it was love, dedication. She was fighting for what was rightfully hers. And at that moment, something inside her changed. Determination gave way to an even darker obsession. If Maya didn't want to cooperate, Emily would find another way to get what she wanted. That evening, Emily came home dejected, the weight of recent events reflected in every hesitant step she took. Liam was waiting for her in the living room, sitting on the sofa with an expression of genuine concern. He knew something needed to change, and he knew he needed to act before the situation got any worse. Emily threw her bag on the floor and fell onto the sofa next to him, covering her face with her hands. For the first time in weeks, she didn't seem willing to fight. "Emily," Liam began, his voice soft but firm, "I can't watch you destroy yourself like this. I know you're suffering. I know it's hard to accept, but you need help." She looked up at him, tears running silently down her face. "You think I'm crazy, don't you? That I've completely lost control?" "I don't think you're crazy," he replied, coming closer and taking her hands. "I think you're hurt. And yes, I think you've lost control. But that doesn't mean you can't find a way out of it." Emily looked away, pride and vulnerability fighting a battle inside her. Finally, she sighed, defeated. "I just wanted so much. I wanted to be a mother, Liam. I wanted us to have a family. And it seemed that with those babies there was finally a chance." "I know," he said, squeezing her hands, "but this obsession is eating you up. It's consuming us, and I'm not going to let you carry it alone. Please, let me help you." After a long pause, Emily finally nodded. "What do you want me to do?" The next morning, Liam made an appointment with a psychologist specializing in grief and family trauma. Emily hesitantly agreed to go. The first session was difficult. She spent most of the time in silence, with her arms crossed, as if she were protecting herself. However, over the course of the conversation, something began to open up inside her. The therapist, a calm and patient woman called Dr. Morgan, encouraged Emily to talk about her deepest emotions, about the emptiness she had felt since finding out she couldn't have children. "I feel incomplete," Emily confessed, her voice shaking. "Like everything I've done in my life has been for nothing. I've built a career, a life with my husband, but in the end, I can't do the one thing that really matters to me." Dr. Morgan nodded, her expression understanding. "It's normal to feel that way, Emily. Losing the possibility of having children can be devastating. But you have to ask yourself, what does it really mean to be a mother? Is it just giving birth to a life, or is it something deeper? Something that can exist in other forms?" The therapist's words stayed with Emily for the next few days. At first, she resisted the idea of finding a new perspective, but slowly she began to consider the possibility. Liam, for his part, stood by her every step of the way, encouraging her and reminding her that they still had each other. Emily began to channel her energy differently. Instead of focusing on Maya's twins, she turned her attention to initiatives that could help children in need. She began working with adoption organizations and orphanages, learning about the stories of children who needed a home. Each of these stories touched her, but at the same time helped to heal a part of her pain. Meanwhile, Maya finally began to feel like she could breathe again. Since the last confrontation, Emily had disappeared from her life, and the silence was a welcome relief. Angela helped formalize a request for Emily not to contact her again, and despite everything, Maya hoped that this wouldn't be necessary. A few weeks later, Emily decided to do something Liam hadn't expected. She asked to meet Maya. When Liam hesitated, Emily explained that she wanted to apologize. "I need to end this the right way," she said. "I don't want to carry that guilt." Liam reluctantly agreed, but insisted on accompanying her. When Maya received the request, she was suspicious, but Angela encouraged her to listen to what Emily had to say. "If she's being honest, it might be good for you too," said her friend. The meeting was arranged in a discreet cafe away from the busy areas. Emily arrived with Liam, who maintained a calm, protective presence at her side. Maya, sitting with a cup of tea in her hand, seemed cautious but open to dialogue. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me," began Emily, her voice softer than Maya had ever heard it before. "I wanted to apologize for everything. I lost control. I let my grief blind me and ended up hurting you in the process." Maya was silent for a moment, watching Emily carefully. Finally, she nodded. It was hard for me. I trusted you, Emily, and I felt betrayed. But I understand that you were dealing with your own pain. Emily swallowed, feeling a twinge of shame. I never meant to hurt you. I know it's too late to say it, but I hope you can forgive me someday. Maya didn't reply immediately. There was a lot to process, but deep down, she knew that holding a grudge wouldn't do her any good. I accept your apology, she finally said, but we need clear boundaries. My family is my priority, and I don't want any more interference. Of course, Emily replied sincerely. I promise there will be no more interference, and if you need anything, I'll be here. In a healthy way this time. With time, Maya got on with her life more calmly. The twins were born healthy, and she dedicated herself to being the best mother she could be, while Sophie happily took on the role of big sister. Emily, on the other hand, continued her healing process, focusing on helping other children and eventually exploring the possibility of adoption with Liam. Although the path was painful, both women found ways to move forward. The wounds that had been opened began to heal, and what remained was a story of resilience, learning, and above all, a deeper understanding of what it means to love and let go. Emily had found herself. After years immersed in pain and doubt, she was reborn as a woman full of purpose and passion. The emptiness that had once consumed her gave way to the strength she devoted to social projects to help children. Her every action was an act of love. In the afternoons of games she organized, the laughter of the children filled the halls of her home, making them come alive in a way Emily had never imagined. For the children who attended the community shelter where she volunteered, Emily wasn't just a benefactor. She was a symbolic mother, someone who offered affection, attention, and a shoulder to cry on. The challenges that had previously seemed insurmountable had become the basis of her resilience. She felt alive, invigorated by the connection with so many children who needed her, and in turn the children loved her deeply. Even the children's parents and guardians saw Emily as an example of compassion and commitment. She was a woman who, having lost so much, still found the strength to offer everything. Liam, for his part, was deeply proud of his wife. He watched her with admiration as she dedicated herself to her new cause. The shadows of obsession and hurt that had once hung over Emily had disappeared, replaced by a light that seemed to attract everyone around her. He knew that Emily was finally at peace with herself, and that made his love for her grow even more. One quiet evening, Emily was in the living room going over some details for a charity event she was organizing. It was a fundraiser for a mentoring program for vulnerable teenagers. Liam, in the office next door, was reading some reports when Emily's phone vibrated. She picked it up casually, but when she saw Maya's name on the screen, she felt a twinge of surprise. Although they had a cordial relationship, it was unusual for Maya to call at that hour. "Hello, Maya," said Emily, getting up from the sofa. "Is everything all right?" On the other end of the line, the silence seemed louder than any response. Then, Maya's voice emerged, shaky and fragile. "Emily." The pause that followed made Emily hold her breath. Something was wrong. Maya had never sounded so vulnerable. Emily gripped the phone tighter, her worry growing by the second. "Maya, what happened?" she asked, now urgently. "Are you okay? Is it about the children?" "I need you," Maya finally said, but the sentence came out broken, almost swallowed by a sob. "Please come here. It's important." Emily's heart raced. Maya's tone was one of desperation, something Emily had never heard before. Maya was a strong, resilient woman who faced everything with courage. For her to ask for help like this, Emily knew that something very serious was going on. "Maya, please tell me what's going on," she insisted, her voice filled with concern. "Is everything all right with the children, Sophie, the twins?" "They're fine," Maya replied, but her voice was shaking even more. "It's something else. Please, Emily, come. I need you. Now." Before Emily could ask more, Maya abruptly ended the call. The silence that remained seemed deafening. Emily stared at the phone for a few seconds, trying to process what had just happened. She knew that Maya wouldn't ask for help so dramatically if it wasn't something serious. Without wasting any time, Emily grabbed her bag and walked quickly to Liam's office. He noticed the serious expression on her face as soon as she entered. "Maya called," said Emily, her voice hurried. "Something's wrong. She sounded desperate. She asked me to come to her house immediately." Liam stood up, concern evident in his eyes. "Do you want me to go with you?" "No," Emily replied, shaking her head. I think that's something she only wants to share with me. But be warned, if I don't hear from you in an hour, please call me." Liam hesitated but finally nodded. "All right. But be careful, Emily. Anything, let me know immediately." Emily smiled lightly, trying to calm him down, but she herself was far from feeling reassured. The drive to Maya's house seemed longer than ever. She drove in silence, Maya's words echoing in her mind. With each passing minute, her anxiety grew. What could be so urgent, and why had Maya called her, specifically? When she finally arrived, Emily stopped the car in front of Maya's house and noticed that the place seemed too quiet. Only one light was on in the living room, and no other movement was visible. Emily felt a chill, but took a deep breath and got out of the car. She walked to the door, feeling a weight on her chest with every step. When she knocked, the sound echoed in the silent night. It took a few seconds before Maya opened the door. When she did, Emily was immediately alarmed. Maya was pale, her eyes red and swollen, as if she had been crying for hours. She was wearing a simple robe, and her hands were shaking slightly as she held the door. She didn't say anything. She just looked at Emily with an expression that was both relieved and desperate. "Maya," Emily began, her voice soft. "What happened? Are you all right?" Maya opened the door fully and gestured for Emily to enter. Without saying a word, she closed the door behind Emily and walked slowly towards the living room. Emily followed her, the silence between them charged with unbearable tension. The room was clean and organized, but there was an energy in the air that made Emily feel like she was stepping into unknown territory. Maya sat on the sofa, her shoulders hunched, and ran her hands over her face, as if trying to find the strength to speak. Emily sat down next to her but didn't press. She knew Maya needed time to open up. After a few moments, Maya finally looked up at her, and Emily saw something she had never seen before: vulnerability, pure and raw. "Thank you for coming," said Maya, her voice low and broken. "I didn't know who else to call." Emily's heart squeezed. She put her hand over Maya's and squeezed gently. "I'm here. Whatever it is, you can tell me." Maya took a deep breath, but before she could reply, her eyes filled with tears again. Emily felt she was about to hear something that would change everything. Emily felt the weight of Maya's words like a punch in the chest. The despair and pain in her friend's voice was almost tangible, so intense that it made the air in the room seem thicker. Maya was standing there in front of her, crumbling in a way that Emily had never imagined possible. The strength that Maya had always shown seemed to have disappeared, replaced by an emptiness that she didn't know how to fill. Emily squeezed Maya's hands, feeling her own shaking, but kept her voice steady. "Maya, please, talk to me. I'm here. You can tell me everything." Maya took a deep breath, trying to pull herself together, but her hands were shaking so much that she had to intertwine her fingers, as if that was enough to hold herself together. Her eyes were red, swollen, and her voice was low, almost a whisper. "I went to the doctor," she began, her voice breaking. "I was feeling tired all the time. I thought it was just stress. Bringing up 3 children on your own, you know how it is. I just thought I needed a bit of a rest." Emily nodded, encouraging her with a gentle squeeze of her hands. Maya lowered her gaze to the floor, her tears starting to fall again as she continued. "But it wasn't that," Maya said, her voice shaking. "They did some tests. They ordered more tests. And then," she swallowed, trying to find the strength in her words, "they found a mass in my stomach. It's cancer, Emily. Cancer. And it's already advanced." Emily felt the world around her stop. Maya's words resounded like an endless echo in her mind, each syllable a blow. She brought a hand to her mouth, trying to hold back the tears, but failing. "Oh my God," she murmured, her voice choked. "Maya, I'm so sorry. I don't even know what to say." Maya let out a bitter laugh, so full of pain that it made Emily clench her hands even tighter. "I didn't know what to say when I heard it either," Maya replied, the tears now streaming freely down her face. "Do you know what the first thing I thought of was? My children. What will happen to them if I don't make it?" Emily felt her heart squeeze even tighter. "Maya, don't talk like that. We'll fight. We'll find a way. I'll help you, no matter what it takes." "I want to believe that," Maya replied, her voice wavering between hope and despair. "But all I can think about is what they said. The doctor said it's going to be hard, Emily. He talked about chemotherapy, surgeries, but he also said that it might be too late. And I can't leave my children. Sophie needs me. The twins are so small, they won't even remember me if I..." Her voice faltered, unable to finish the sentence. Emily immediately pulled her into a hug, holding her as if that would take away all the pain. Maya began to cry even harder, the weight of fear and uncertainty crashing down on her. Emily felt her own tears falling, but refused to let despair take over. "You're not alone, Maya," said Emily, her voice broken but full of determination. "I'm here, and I'll be here every step of the way. We'll find the best doctors, the best treatments, no matter the cost, no matter what it takes. I won't let you go through this alone." Maya sobbed, pulling away slightly to look into Emily's eyes. "Why are you doing this for me? After everything that's happened?" Emily gently wiped the tears from Maya's face. "Because I care about you. Because you're my friend. And because, Maya, I know what it's like to feel like your world is falling apart and you have no one to turn to. I won't let that happen to you." Maya tried to smile, but her expression was still filled with sadness and fear. "You have no idea how much this means to me." Emily clasped her hands again, steady as a rock. "You don't have to thank me. Just let me help you. Please." The next day, Emily began to take action. The first thing she did was call Liam, her emotions still running high. He listened intently as she explained what had happened, her voice full of urgency and emotion. When she had finished, Liam answered without hesitation, "Use whatever you have to, Emily. Do whatever you need to help her." With Liam's support, Emily began to organize everything. She called renowned clinics, made appointments with specialists, and used all the influence she had to speed up the process. Every phone call, every detail was made with the utmost care. She knew she couldn't waste any time. Maya, although reluctant at first, eventually accepted the help. Her resistance was motivated by a mixture of pride and fear, but Emily left no room for refusal. When the day of her first appointment arrived, Maya was visibly nervous. Her hands were shaking as she filled in the forms at reception, and Emily sat down next to her, holding her hand as she had promised. "We're here," Emily whispered, trying to reassure her, "and we're going to face this together." In the consulting room, the doctor explained everything patiently, but also frankly. The cancer was aggressive and had already spread. The treatment would be intense, requiring chemotherapy and possibly surgery. The road would be difficult and painful, but there was hope. Maya listened to everything in silence, squeezing Emily's hand so tightly that her fingers turned white. When the doctor had finished, she finally found the strength to speak. "So, is there a chance?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yes," replied the doctor, "but it will be a battle. You'll need a lot of support, and you'll need to be ready to fight with everything you've got." Maya looked at Emily, and Emily replied with a firm smile, "You have all the support in the world, and you're stronger than you think." After that, the routine of treatments began. Emily was there for every chemotherapy session, holding Maya's hand as she faced the side effects. She was there on the nights when Maya felt so weak she could barely get out of bed, and she was there in the moments when Maya cried, fearing for the future, fearing leaving her children. Emily didn't abandon her for an instant. The suffering was immense, but the connection between them grew every day. Emily had become more than a friend. She was the foundation that supported Maya in her struggle. Sophie, always curious and perceptive, asked why her mother was so ill. Maya explained as best she could, with Emily by her side, helping to soften the words. The twins, still small, didn't understand what was happening, but they smiled every time they saw Emily, as if they knew she was there to help. Every day Emily felt more deeply the weight of the responsibility she had taken on, but also the strength it gave her. Seeing Maya fight for her life and her children inspired her in ways she could never have predicted. Every tear, every moment of pain, was also a reminder of how powerful love and friendship could be, and Emily knew that as long as Maya was willing to fight, she would be there fighting by her side. Emily was exhausted, but she wasn't giving up. Every day was a constant struggle to keep Maya hopeful, to ensure that she had everything she needed in her battle against cancer. Emily spent sleepless nights researching alternatives, calling doctors, organizing appointments, and making sure Maya's children were cared for with love while their mother faced the challenges of treatment. Sophie was beginning to understand more than she should for a girl her age, and the twins, still small, were always in Emily's arms, as if they felt she was an extension of the comfort their mother offered. Maya resisted with everything she had. She endured the treatments, the pain and the exhaustion with a fierce determination. Emily was by her side at every chemotherapy session, holding her hand, whispering words of encouragement when the side effects took hold. But even with all Emily's dedication, the best doctors and renewed hope at every appointment, the disease advanced relentlessly. Maya's fragility became evident. Her skin, once vibrant, became pale and paper-thin. Her movements became slower, and her energy increasingly scarce. One night, Maya called Emily to sit next to her while Sophie and the twins slept. She was lying in bed, covered in a soft comforter that Emily had bought to make her more comfortable. There was something in Maya's eyes that frightened Emily. It wasn't desperation, but acceptance. Emily held Maya's hands, which were cold, and tried to hold back the tears that were beginning to form. "Emily," Maya began, her voice soft but firm, "I need you to listen to what I'm going to say. Don't run away from it, please." Emily shook her head, feeling a pang of panic in her chest. "Maya, don't talk like that. You still have time. We'll find a way. I promise I won't give up." Maya smiled slightly, a sad smile but full of love. "I know you won't give up. You never give up, and that's why I trusted you. But I think my body is telling me something different. I feel like maybe my time is running out. And, Emily, I need to know that you'll be here for them." Emily tried to protest, but Maya squeezed her hands with surprising strength. "Sophie and the twins need someone like you. Someone who loves them unconditionally. Someone who is strong enough to protect them when I can't anymore. I know I'm asking a lot, but please, Emily, promise me that you will be that person." Emily felt tears streaming down her face as she tried to find the words. Everything in her wanted to refuse, wanted to tell Maya that there would be no need, that she would be fine. But deep down, Emily knew. She knew that Maya was telling the truth. "I promise," Emily whispered at last, her voice laced with tears. "I promise I'll be here for them always." Maya closed her eyes for a moment, as if at peace for the first time in months. "Thank you, Emily," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "You have no idea how much this means to me." Over the next few days, Emily continued to look after Maya with even more dedication. But every day, she saw her friend drifting further away. Maya slept longer, ate less, and spoke only the bare essentials. When she found the strength to write a letter to each of her children, Emily knew the time was near. The letter to Sophie was long, full of advice and loving memories. The twins were short, but filled with immense love. Emily was by her side as Maya wrote, holding her hand when she became too tired to continue. The morning Maya left, Emily was with her. Maya had asked Emily not to cry, but it was impossible. Emily held her hand until the last moment, whispering words of love and gratitude as her friend took her last breath. When it was all over, the house seemed plunged into a devastating silence. Emily looked at Maya's serene face and felt a crushing weight in her chest. She had promised to be strong, but at that moment all she could feel was emptiness and guilt. The funeral was painful. Sophie, dressed in black, held Emily's hand tightly, as if she feared she would leave too. The twins were in Liam's arms, who did his best to help while Emily tried to stand. Everyone who had known Maya showed up to say goodbye, leaving words of comfort for Emily, who was now responsible for the 3 little ones. After the funeral, Emily felt the weight of responsibility fall on her with full force. She was now all that Sophie and the twins had. Although she knew that Maya had trusted her, guilt still consumed her. She wondered if she could have done more, if she should have insisted on another treatment, another doctor, anything that could have saved her friend. Emily returned to therapy, unable to carry this weight alone. During the sessions, she got things off her chest, talking about her doubts, her pain, and above all, her guilt. "I failed her," Emily said in one of the sessions, tears streaming down her face. "I promised I would take care of her, but I couldn't. And now, all that's left are these children who depend on me, and I don't even know if I'm strong enough for that." Dr. Morgan, patient as ever, waited for Emily to take a deep breath before answering. "Emily, you didn't fail Maya. You did everything in your power to help her. The fact that she trusted you to look after her children shows how much she believed in your strength. Perhaps, instead of seeing it as a burden, you can start to see it as a gift." The therapist's words echoed in Emily's mind for days. Little by little, she began to realize that her and Maya's lives had intersected for a greater reason. The children were not just a reminder of Maya's loss, but an extension of the love her friend had left behind. They were her chance to honor the promise she had made, to ensure that Maya would live on through them. As time passed, Emily began to feel less guilty and more grateful. Sophie and the twins had brought a new light into her life, something she had never imagined she could experience again. Every smile, every laugh was a reminder of the greater purpose she had found. She still felt the pain of loss, but now, instead of weighing her down, that pain seemed to guide her, inspiring her to be the best mother she could be to the children Maya had loved so much. Emily transformed her house into a home full of love and joy. Sophie blossomed under her care, becoming a confident and loving little girl. The twins grew up surrounded by affection, and Emily spared no effort to ensure that they had everything they needed. More than that, Emily found peace. She knew that Maya would be proud. She knew that although she couldn't save her friend, she had kept her promise. And finally, she allowed herself to feel blessed to be part of this family that fate had put in her path. Emily was in the backyard, under the orange late afternoon sky, while the twins played in the grass and Sophie read a book on a swing. It was a peaceful scene, full of life and warmth, but it carried a weight that Emily felt with every breath. Maya had been gone for a year, and there wasn't a day when Emily didn't think of her friend. Still, she knew that this was Maya's legacy, a legacy that she now had the privilege and responsibility of protecting. The twins ran around her, laughing, and Sophie called to her from the swing. "Emily, look, I've learned to do it myself." She pushed her legs back and forth with force, gaining height in the air. Emily smiled, her heart warming, but her eyes filling with tears at the same time. Maya should have been there to see this, to share this moment. Emily quickly wiped away the tears before the children noticed. In the evening, after bathing the twins and helping them to sleep, Sophie came into the bedroom where Emily was organizing some toys. The girl hesitated in the doorway, holding something in her hands. It was one of the letters Maya had written before she left, addressed to Sophie. "I think I'm ready to read it," said Sophie, her voice low. Emily stopped what she was doing and sat down on the bed, holding out her hand to Sophie. The girl handed the letter to Emily, who opened it carefully, taking a deep breath before starting to read. Emily's voice was soft, but each word seemed to hang heavy in the air. "My dear Sophie," Emily began, and already felt the lump in her throat tighten. "If you're reading this, it means I'm no longer there with you. I know this must be hard, and I wish I could be there to hug you and tell you that everything is going to be all right. But even though I'm not physically with you, I'll never stop loving you. You're the most incredible girl I've ever met. Strong, kind, intelligent. Always remember that." Sophie began to cry, and Emily pulled her close, hugging her as she continued. "And I want you to know that you're not alone. I chose Emily because I knew she would be able to give you all the love and support you deserve. Trust her, Sophie. She's there for you, to look after you and your siblings, just as I would. And remember, whenever you look at the stars, that I'll be looking too." The letter ended with words of love and courage, but left a heavy silence in the room. Sophie looked at Emily, tears streaming down her young face. "I miss her so much," Sophie said, sobbing. "Me too, my love," replied Emily, holding her tightly. "But you know what I think. I think your mother is very proud of you now, and she's looking out for us every day." That night, when Emily went up to her room, she felt the emotion finally pour out of her. She sat on her bed, holding a photo of Maya that she kept on her bedside table. The tears came, hot and silent, as she looked at her friend's face. "Maya," Emily whispered, "I hope I'm doing what you wanted. I hope I'm being good enough for them, and I wish you were here to see how amazing they look. They have so much of you." As the tears fell, Emily also felt something new. It was no longer just sadness or guilt. It was gratitude for everything Maya had given her, for Sophie, for the twins, for the new chance to love and be loved. The next day, as the sun was rising, Emily prepared breakfast for the children and called them to the table. Sophie entered the kitchen with a smile, the twins following close behind. The typical morning mess was comforting, full of laughter and small childish discussions. Emily looked at them and knew at that moment that she had found her purpose. She had a family, not in the way she had imagined, but in the way that fate had prepared for her. As the food was being served, Emily stopped and said, "Today I want everyone to make a request before we eat. We're going to do this in memory of your mother, who gave us this beautiful family." Sophie closed her eyes, the twins imitated her, and Emily did the same. Her request was simple but profound, that she would be strong enough to honor the promise she had made to Maya, that she would continue to be what those children needed. Laughter filled the dining room, and for the first time in a long time, Emily felt that she wasn't just surviving, she was living. And with that, She knew that Maya, in some way, was living too, through her and the children. And what about you? Have you ever stopped to think about how even the most difficult situations can reveal a greater purpose to us? Emily and Maya's story shows us that love can transform pain into something extraordinary, and that human connection is capable of changing lives. In the next video, we'll explore another moving story, full of overcoming, courage, and unbreakable bonds. A story that will touch your heart and show how even in the darkest moments, we can